Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. Over the last 2 episodes, and this is the third part of this 3-part mini-series, we've been showing you what foundation you have to lay in year 1 in order to really accelerate your influence and hit that escape velocity that Kirk and I have been talking about. Today, we're going to be diving into year 2 and year 3. And before we get into this, I want everybody to understand that you should have a 3 to 5 year marketing plan. Just like you do for your clients, you want them to take the long view with your financial plan. You need to do the same thing with your marketing. So, Kirk, all right, man, we're on year 2, brother. Where do we begin?
Yeah, that was a great intro, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hope everybody appreciates just how powerful what Matt just said is. Right, this is the essence of content marketing, influence marketing, and just marketing in general. So let's start by how do you expand your reach? And there are what traditional marketing ways, and then there are more organic marketing ways, which are referrals. So we got 5 ideas here that are key for you to pursue and put in place when you're ready. I would suggest that this happens sometime during the second year. If you feel like you got way more momentum and you got a team that can handle, so you can do it sooner. And if you feel like you're not quite ready, then move it to, halfway through or near the end of the second year. Okay. Mm-hmm. First one is to be top of mind with centers of influence. If you can use your podcast to connect with them, there's 2 ways to do that. Either you speak to them in some of the podcast episodes, or you get them on as guests on your show. And that is an incredible methodology or approach, if you will. And we've seen some really incredible success stories from having guests who are centers of influence, who have ideal clients that they work with, that you work with theirs and they work with yours. Might not be a direct, perfect correlation, but if they've got some and you've got some, that can be a great partnership. This next one is having a referral process. So make sure that anybody that's a client, a prospect, or a center of influence understands, number one, who you want to be referred to and how you prefer to be referred to, and what your promise or follow through is with that. All 3 of those things make you sound professional, and they also ensure that the people that you're working with understand how professional you are, and then you're more likely to move those opportunities forward with the right opportunity. So you don't waste a lot of time, their time, your time, or the referrals time. Those are all key. I didn't repeat myself there, or did I?
No, you're good. Keep going,
Good.
dude.
Number 33 on our list. So this is a 33 tactic. We haven't always been keeping tabs on what number, but just so you know, this is number 33, is referral communication. So if you have a referral plan and that's in place, you have to remind people all the time. So I talked about being top of mind with center of influence. That's because you're including them in your stuff, but make sure they understand that you want them to be included. So make sure you communicate all the time what's going on, how things are going, and that you want to refer. One of the best ways to refer or get them interested is for you to refer them. And Matt's talked about this as one of his favorite Cialdini's principles of influence, which is
the principle of reciprocity.
Yes. So if you do something nice for them, you're more likely to attract them doing nice stuff for you. That's why they have to be ideal fits. So you can't just call up, as an example, any attorney, any real estate agent. They have to be people that your audience would value, and that their audience would value you. So you have to find the good relationship. You just can't, go online, search for all the attorneys in your area and just start firing off stuff to them. If they're not right, this isn't going to work. So you need to make sure you do your homework there. Scripting. I don't know that you need an exact script when you're talking about referral scripting, but if you don't say the right things and you're not consistent with it, and it's just kind of off the cuff, you're not going to be as successful. Mm-hmm. So make sure that you understand different methods, and depends on who you're talking to, how you're going to position this. So spend some time and get that right. If it's just a bunch of keywords that help you, do it in the right order, that's fine. But make sure that you have a game plan and you follow that. Also, you could share that script with people who you want to refer you.
Yeah.
So put yourself in their shoes and say, how do I make this as easy as possible for them to feel comfortable referring me? It's not just how you want to be referred, but it's the words, like how, as in, just send them to my podcast and then I'll follow up and tell them I'll follow up with them in a week, or whatever you decide you want to do. But make sure you understand how to tell them or teach them, if you will, to communicate you. And that's not going to come easy. If you ever ask a client how they refer to your business, like what's your brand, and or who do you work with, and or how would you communicate that, is typically going to be off from what you would do. Mm-hmm. So set them up for success. That's a really important branding trick. Is you want to that's when you know your brand is great, or when your referrals are great, is when they know exactly what to say. And typically you have to teach them. It just doesn't, your clients just don't perfectly articulate everything you do. Listening to our podcast, fans of the Top Advisor Marketing podcast who've listened to Matt and or myself, or in particular, or Jessica on our team, they have heard similar things all the time. It's possible that people say, if you want to be your own loud, go hang out with ProudMouth. Right? It's also possible if you say, don't half-ass your marketing, full-ass your marketing, which is a Matt Hallorism. By the way, I heard that on Parks and Rec.
Dude, that's where I got it from. What do you? I didn't.
Oh, that's where you got it from. I heard it the other day on Parks and Rec. I think it was on Instagram, and I was laughing. And I said, "That guy's as brilliant as Halloran."
Okay. Dude, that was totally took it from there. So yeah.
So those, the next one, number 35, is expand your expert network. So you want to, as much as possible, this, I've kind of alluded to this in the last one, which is when you go find centers of influence to talk to, find experts who are going to add a lot of value, and tell them that that's why you're searching for them. You believe that how they do, and who they do it for could have significant value. I want my clients to learn from you. I want to set you up for success. And so it's similar to guesting, but you can just involve them in your business processes, not just having them as a guest, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So expand your expert network by going out and searching for people. That there's some due diligence required there, right? So next part of this is, and Matt's going to handle these next 4 tactics, are really about getting some media attention, how you start getting that done. So over to you, Matt.
Yeah. So we've had a couple of clients who've been very, very, very successful with this, including one of our newer clients that we've gotten. And I'm going to use him as a good example. So it's the Midland Money podcast. It's got a magnificent hook. They're a wonderful client of ours, but more importantly, they're creating unbelievable content. And because of the content, it actually also made a book. And then from that book, they decided that they were going to hire and do some very light PR. And the light PR always begins with getting featured locally, because that's really, really important, especially if you want to be geographically constrained somewhat. Then getting on your local television and your local newspaper, and or getting involved with local or national organizations and associations is really, really big. I've got a couple of advisors that I've known for many, many years that have affiliated themselves with major national associations, whether it's nurse anesthetists, which I've talked a lot about on the show, medical school associations like Support for Medical Residents, to national podiatrists, to people who work with truckers. So here's the thing with niches, though. I just talked about that too. So niches are actually the next level of that association, right? Is you even within an association, but man, putting those two things together and getting featured in this grand scheme of things. In fact, Kirk, I think I already shared this with you, but I want to share it again. When I was on the MDRT stage a little while ago, I was interviewing a couple of advisors, and Brian actually ended up being on our show, Brian Haney. He works with people who are association executives, and he's on that national board. Now, it took him 7-8 years to get there, but this is why Kirk and I are going through this, because we want you to understand that it needs a long-term plan. And then the last piece is local influencers or niche influencers. Every single solitary niche and or association or locality has people that are famous. try to get them to come on your show, start affiliating yourself with them, start liking, sharing, and commenting on their content so that when you do go for the ask for them to be a guest on your show, maybe doing a TV spot together, maybe an educational workshop, it can actually go very, very smoothly. So some people are thinking right now, well, man, that could be really, really expensive. And in PR, there is a spend, and it is not an A plus B equals C equation. PR is to raise the visibility of your brand. But Kirk, I'm going to turn this back over to you because I get asked all the time in the sales process, because we talk about promoting your show, right? Do you have to pay to play? So you take it from here.
I think there's a misconception that if you build it, they will come. I'm quoting Field of Dreams here. If you build something really good, it can organically, and it has a lot of value and got a really clear niche, it can grow quicker organically than other things. But you guys are experts in stuff that sometimes isn't always as appealing as, hey, I'm going for a walk. I want to be entertained. I'm going to go listen to somebody talk about wills and attorney. You know what I mean? Like, so what you have to do is you have to find a way to be interesting, add value, but you also have to find a way to have a big enough audience that somebody says, you know what, I got to figure out this will thing. I got to get a better will. And, or they didn't know they did. You got to figure out how to get in front of more people so you can hit enough people who are in need of what you do, which is basics of marketing. It's marketing 101. But don't just don't just think that putting it on iTunes or syndicating to iTunes, like there's a lot of podcasts on iTunes.
Sure.
The more niche you are, the more success you'll have. Luck if somebody's searching you, but you'll have hopefully done some research on whether or not people are searching what you're talking about, and your niche is clear and out in the world, because people are looking for, need your kind of help. But paid promotion can really help you boost your chances of getting that done. It'll accelerate what you're doing, and it's a good thing to consider. I do not think it's as good a thing to consider before you become more adept at podcasting. What's really neat about podcasting is that if you're on episode 40, let's say, and they go back and listen to episode 10, they understand that it's an evolution. And so they'll be easy on you when you're not as good. And for most people, you're not going to be as good. Just get over it. But I can tell you when you're not going to be as good as you're at 40 unless you do 40.
That's right.
So there's no excuse. If you think or if you're using that as an excuse not to start, don't. So paid promotion is a really important thing. There are a couple things to do. One is you can boost social posts and or episodes. You can boost episodes through podcast communities. You can boost social posts through social communities, or you can create ads. So if there's something that really did well, or something that you think is going to do really well, because you really understand your niche audience and your expertise, you can run video ads. So to either take a clip or do a promo for a show, and what's the content that's going to be in the show. Don't just promote the show. Give them actual content right there that really intrigues them and makes them want to go listen to the long copy or a series of short copy, right? And that can be really powerful. And you could go pay for that stuff. What you don't want to do, in my opinion, and I think Matt feels the same here, is to get into the most competitive place. So if you're doing Google AdWords, competing with big companies with big budgets, you might not do as well. So find the niche, compete where there's less competition for words, and it's a different advertising style, and try stuff like that. And the other one is SEO stuff, which I think we've already talked about. Those are really great things to do. Number 41 is refine calls to action. I think this is a really important one. As you get better at stuff, you need to develop better marketing to support it, because you have better content. You've got a lot of practice doing this, so you get better and better at delivering that. And you also have some data now to support, okay, this did really well, this didn't do as well. And so now, and you've got a lot more content to create more calls to action. So if you're at 40 episodes in, as an example, or 20 episodes in, maybe you can take 3 or 4 of your episodes and create a white paper from them. And then that white paper, and then a checklist with that. And now those become a call to action that you didn't have before, but you developed over time because you got a lot more content and thought leadership out into the world. And or you understand something better, so you can update something you had or add to it. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that. So you can update the calls to action themselves, the titles, and you can use AI if you want some help doing that. Just make sure that it's mostly your content that you're feeding into the system instead of asking it to do it on its own, because it won't do that. It's kind of difficult creating a white paper, to be honest. It's not powerful enough yet. Having said that, whenever this releases, probably in September, who knows, this stuff, AI is getting better quite quickly. So
Yeah.
the other one is to up your game. So think about if you were going to do a call to action in 6 months on a certain topic that one episode did really well, break that episode down into 3 or 4 things, and then write a white paper on it, and then make that, and then do a checklist and create that call to action. Right. So there's easy things to do there. Use short content for owned audience and audience growth. So owned audiences, remember, is when you get their email address. So use short content to get them to the long content, and then to get them to the call to action where you own their audience. And also when you're doing owned audience stuff, make sure they understand where to connect with you. Make sure they understand all their options. We're on YouTube now. You can watch us. So some people find that really great. They love going over there. So just if you want to watch or feel like you can see and connect visually with us when we're doing our thing, go hang out on YouTube. Not everybody might be on YouTube or think you are on YouTube. Maybe they don't think you're there with your marketing success or brilliance yet, but get there. Okay. The next thing, Matt, if you could talk about strategic partnerships, that's tactic number 42.
Yeah. So this is the long play. And when we're talking about niches or associations or these long-term strategic relationships, you need to understand that yes, we're into year 2 here, but when you start focusing on strategic partnerships, which let me define what that means. A strategic partnership is where you're going to be very friendly openly with another organization that services the same niche or ideal client that you do. So that's the operational definition I want to make sure I focus on. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to nurture that. You can get them to come on your show. You can do events together. You can start being like, a guest writer for, their organization. They can do the same thing for you. But I really, really want to make sure that there's some things that you pay attention to. Number one, you need to enter into a formal agreement with them where you actually get an attorney involved. You talk about what the expectations are, and you want to do it over a calendar year. I want you to be able to do X, Y, and Z for me, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you. And then you're going to have quarterly check-in meetings with these strategic partners to make sure you're living up to those expectations. If you're falling short, then you need to have real conversations. This is business. This isn't just an affiliation. This is actually a legal agreement. And then last but not least, I want to go back to how long it takes. Some strategic partnerships you can land them in 3 to 6 months. No, that's never been our experience at ProudMouth. Just to use an example, it took us 18 months to go through the procurement process and get approved at Raymond James. 18 months of consistent work, monthly, every other month meetings with the teams, answering the same questions over and over again. But when you get a strategic partnership like that, it can open up humongous doors. And the nice thing about this is too, once you land one strategic partnership as a financial services professional, other ones will fall into place because some people are good with being first, but some people want to kind of ride the coattails. So that's strategic partnerships. I think it's an important component of you really taking your practice to the business level. And then now you have a business, right? Because everything that Kirk and I have talked about from 41 below is not just great marketing, but it's really great business. It's taking yourself out of just running a lifestyle practice that, is, your own personal piggy bank, to really changing your mindset and thinking like a business, which is a perfect transition. And I planned that because, Kirk, it really is all about the numbers and the planning and how all of these things coordinate together, which is what you do for all of us here at ProudMouth. You are the captain of the ship. You are driving this boat in the right direction, and also making sure that all of the things are working together. So take it from here.
Yeah. So number 43 is creating a budget for boosting. So an advertising budget. And this is what we call push marketing, right? Push an ad out and hope they come back in versus putting your content out there and pulling them back in to more content. So this push strategy in particular, you want to know what your baseline is. So you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You want to build slow and build steady, and that's really important. So set your baseline. If you find something that's doing well and you want to grow it a little bit, do that within the limitations of your budget. So set those. You want it to be something that you can be consistent with. Okay. We're going to have to edit this part out. Sorry. Making work for editors.
You don't want to leave.
It's going to get ugly here if I didn't take a pause. While you were talking, I had this like a allergy attack just go through my whole head, and I was like, oh boy, eyes started watering. I don't know if there's a logical point there.
I better
start over again.
Okay, go ahead.
I need to go faster with this one anyway. So number 43 is creating an advertising budget for boosting. The first thing you should do is create a baseline. So marketing is all about being consistent. So if there's something you can afford for the next year for boosting, start there. If it's $200 or $500 a month and you can just kind of get started, start there. Get good at it. If you can get enough data, which is hard to do with smaller amounts, then just test and trial, right? Or trial, same thing. Test, rebuild it, test, measure, and then build it over again. So actually the lean startup model is learn, build, and measure, and then just repeat it. Learn, build, measure, learn, build, measure. That's basically what you're doing with advertising. You're trying to figure out what's working. So work with a company who's really good at measuring and then learning from that, and then put it back in place. So factor that in. It's not just the spend. It's the money to create and analyze and get the best ads out there, right? Because you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on an ad that's not effective. You're better off perfecting what's working. So find a partner for that understands that, right? Don't get into a relationship where they're just letting you run whatever you want, because you're not going to get anywhere, more than likely. Number 44 is to connect your print and digital marketing efforts. I'll be honest with this. This is one of my favorite things that we have not done, at least to my recollection. And that is combining print and digital media. So I think there's a really good opportunity to run postcard ads, mailers, and get people to go back and listen to your podcast. Not just, hey, listen to my podcast, but here's why you, specifically you, ought to listen to the podcast, because here's the questions or things it's going to solve that are questions that you should be asking yourself. And if you can push that out, I think that is a really great way to add, get a bit of a community, local vibe to it, right? I'm in your area. And I think that's a great way to get started. I don't think postcards are that expensive. I think they're a reasonable way to drive people to that. You could have the podcast offer on one side and maybe a webinar on the other side, or something else. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, if we grow this by so many, I'll donate to charity, or maybe it's promoting a local event or something you're doing locally, but use a postcard and combine it with digital marketing. I think it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. I was very honest saying we haven't done, we've got 157 tactics. we don't do everything for our customers here. But I think this is one that could be effective if you have a local community, like, or segments of your community where your audience lies. So if you're talking about, or you get a list. So let's say you've got a big factory from a big, company, and you get addresses for all their employees. I think is highly unlikely. The other way to do it is to find communities with people who it's a different kind of niche audience, because you don't know where they're working or what all their problems are, but they have money. So that's not ideal, but maybe you find a way to do that. But anyway, you can send a print marketing to get people to act on digital marketing. I think that's a really good opportunity. One that I don't think is being done.
No, I'm going to pause you there, dude, because, you and I have talked about this for quite a long time. When people are running away from something, it's probably the time for you to start running towards it. And you can do this, by the way, within your strategic partnerships, affiliations, and niches. Yeah. You just kind of talked about that a little bit, but I'm going to wrap that back around to what I had talked about before. This is a perfect opportunity, especially with an association, to get a mailer to go out to everybody in that association, which, by the way, they're always looking for content. And, that can be print, that can be digital. I love where you went with this. And yeah. I think that that's huge.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting here is for everybody to know now that if Matt was in a horror movie, he's the guy that dies first. Because he just told everybody to run back to where everybody else is running for. I don't know why that struck me.
That guy.
Yeah, he's a goner first.
That's awesome.
So you're going to be an extra. That's going to be your peak.
Nice. All right.
So print and digital, great idea. It's number 44. Number 45 is to conduct research or audience surveys. You can really connect and learn stuff from people. Absolute Engagement are tremendous at this stuff, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They're a friend of ProudMouth, and they have a great service. There's so much you can learn from asking people questions, and people, not everybody's going to answer, but the people who do feel like you care. And the people who didn't saw that you do care by asking those questions. So I think that's a great idea. We have big plans to do that here when we get there, when the timing's right. But if the timing's right and you've got clients, prospects, COIs that you want to learn more information from, go ask them. We've actually just done 2 surveys.
Yeah.
Actually, several internally and some externally. And so we're picking up on this. But I think it's if you don't have the resources to do this in-house, I would absolutely call Absolute Engagement and figure that out for them or with them. So, you want to take this next part?
Yeah, I'm really happy that you brought up Absolute Engagement, just because it's just such a wonderful way to have a wonderful, powerful, engaging questionnaire to your existing clients to really understand how they're feeling. Okay, so year 1, foundation. Year 2, hone. Add some stuff, maybe spend a little bit of money in a couple of different directions. But again, as with your financial plan, year 3 through 5 is where things really start getting good. So now we're on year 3-ish, right? I mean, obviously, as Kirk said, this is a little bit more fluid, but now we're going to talk about where you're going to go to really hit that escape velocity and move those skeptics really into the fan category. Mm-hmm. So we're on 46, Kirk. Where are we going?
Yeah. First thing, number 46 in year 3 is to increase the frequency of content. I think it's pretty obvious that the bigger influencers, it says I'm having success with this when you do it. So it says something to your audience. You guys are liking this. You want more. We're going to give more. And you can be more, you can proliferate, if you will, the marketplace with your thought leadership. And you're better at it now. You're in year 3. You're a lot better at it, more than likely. You've refined the kind of guests that you have on, and you've got the credibility of having done it for a couple of years. Again, you're going to have support in place to make sure you can execute, because you don't want to start improving or increasing the frequency and then have to pull back on that. So we understand that. We've been through stuff like this with clients and ourselves. So know that it's not a great idea to do it unless you know you can handle it, keep it up. Number 47 is to update your profile. So personas, niche, anything that's going on with your podcast where you're a little change of direction, or you just gotten better at the direction you've been heading in, make sure you pause to update that. Just because you had a great brand 2 years ago doesn't mean it's perfect going forward.
Yeah.
Right. You want to evolve that. We're doing that here. And actually doing a lot of it right now. It's a great process to get better and improve what you're doing. And sometimes you create something that is good, but you miss little things, then you learn them. So you want to do that. So make sure that you get your positioning straight, that you update. If you want to be a speaker and you got a profile sheet or a guest sheet, just go back and look at everything you've done that was in place and working well, and see if you can make it better. Okay. So that's a really good checkpoint at certain year 3. The next one is to host an event. Start really engaging your community in your thought leadership and your influence. Make them feel like they're on a journey with you. It's likely that you've gone beyond your community when you get through, to year 3. You're starting to expand. People start recognizing you. And we did this really neat thing. We had a corporate event recently for our team. And we had what we call our client success coordinators got up in front of everybody in the company and shared client success stories. And then we actually had our entire team vote on them. And it was really fun. And the winner, part of that story was that somebody was out hiking. Somebody recognized them. They were surprised that they were recognized because they were only less than 2 years in, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they said, "I want to do business with you." Like they see them out hiking in the world. They recognize them. Oh my gosh, they want to do business. And they had, I would guess by the sounds of the story that it was enough money to pay for a full year of their marketing with us. So and that's recurring. So that stuff's paid for and can be paid for very quickly. And the thing there is that person was approachable, made an impression, was offering value, and was out in the community. So that only happens if you're doing cool things. So if you have an event, now you're more and more people that bring friends. Yep. It's just a different way of expanding. But we know that, breaking bread with people and hanging around them is still one of the best ways that humans connect, right? So combine that face-to-face stuff with the voice and the face that are happening digitally, and it becomes a powerful thing. Have something like a cause that you're working towards. Show a different side of you. This isn't all about my show or my audience. This is about doing good things. And that can be a great way. Number 49, rinse and repeat. Go back and just keep getting good at this stuff. Sometimes you do something and then you forget about it, or stops getting executed. Maybe because you get so busy doing other things, you forget about it. Go back and look at everything. Try to do it. Find the best stuff, right? So Matt's going to wrap up here with the last bit.
Yeah. So we really tried to cover a lot here. I think I was talking to a friend of mine who said, every time you and Kirk are on the show, I can't take notes fast enough, which hopefully means they'll just listen to the show over and over again. But we're going to put a nice bow on all of this. Number one, listen, reinvest in your marketing. Right? You have to invest in it consistently. It's like asset allocation. It's like dollar cost averaging. It's something that you have to just do over and over again, especially after you get a win. If you get a win, maybe allocate a little bit of that win, 7 to 10% of that win, back into marketing. The other thing is we know that you can't do all of this yourself, and probably, well, you can, but you probably shouldn't do all of this yourself, especially if there's things that you're finding as you're rolling through this in year 3, year 2, year 1, that are hitches in your get along. There are people who can absolutely help you, especially when it comes to content creation. Your marketing people aren't professional writers. Always keep that in mind. Have a 5 to 10 year plan. People ask me a lot, Kirk, and I don't know, I think I shared this with you when we were hanging out last week, but when I'm meeting with other fellow marketers within financial services, they ask, why has ProudMouth been so successful? And my first thing I say is, Kirk and I had a 10-year plan. When we built this, we had a 10-year plan, and now we're in another iteration of that 10-year plan. Now we've focused on a 5-year plan. We're 2 years into that 5-year plan. Most businesses don't do that. Always look for help for other people who are smarter, stronger, faster, and just better than you. There's always going to be somebody. Every one of you should have a show, a content creation, social proof hero in this industry that you look at them and say, I want to be like them. Always do that. And then after you exceed them, you will find somebody else. So for Kirk and all of us here at ProudMouth, this is Matt Halloran. We'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.